Good morning. My name is Cynthia Van Ness. I'm Director of the Library and Archives at the Buffalo History Museum. And today I'm going to be reading to you from Peeps at the Pan-American, which is a scrapbook kept by Mabel Barnes. She was a teacher and librarian at Maston Park High School. She visited the grounds of the Pan-American several times in 1901 and kept copious notes. Then she collected quite a lot of memorabilia and spent the next 14 years or so compiling scrapbooks with her experiences and observations on the grounds. She often visited with a fellow teacher and mentions them by name, so you'll often hear her talk about a Miss Hale or someone else. So today I'm going to start with Peeps at the Pan-American, an account of personal visits in the summer of 1901 from notes jotted down on the spot and put in permanent form during 14 years, 1905 to 1914. Her first page opens with a nice black and white rendering of the electric tower. Volume 1 was completed in July 1905. First visit, Sunday, April 28, 1901. Today was the last free day at the Pan-American. Miss Hale had been presented with a pass by Mr. Cornett, and she invited me to go with her. We went out to the grounds about 3 o'clock, entering at the West Amherst Gate. This was our first visit since the erection of the buildings. Everything was in a most unfinished state. The grounds were in great disorder, the exhibits were not in place, and few of the midway buildings were completed. As the exhibition buildings were not open to the public, we were forced to content ourselves with wandering about the grounds and viewing the outsides of things. It was a good opportunity, however, for learning the location of buildings and becoming acquainted with the general lay of the land. The dimensions of the grounds from north to south are about 1 mile, and from east to west about half a mile, the plot containing 350 acres. The principal buildings of the exposition surround a broad and beautiful court in the form of an inverted letter T, with the cross arm as the esplanade, extending east and west, and the vertical stem extending north, terminating in the propylia. The court of fountains in the center of the vertical stem and starting from its 4 corners is the beginning of the main group of buildings. In the grouping of buildings, there is a logical arrangement and significance. On the left of the esplanade are placed the examples of natural resources, mining, horticulture, etc. On the other side are the exhibits which speak of the American people and their institutions, while another distinct group, machinery, electricity, etc., testifies to the genius of man. The spirit of all this is epitomized and symbolized in the statuary. The sculptural schemes comprises in sequence the embodiment of the various ideas associated with an American exposition. The note of welcome, recognition of state and national dignity, the natural wealth of the country, and the prowess of man's inventiveness and labor. The court surrounded by the mining and horticultural buildings is devoted to the subject of nature. The opposite court surrounded by the government buildings is devoted to man and his institutions. And the main court surrounded by the machinery, manufactures, electricity, etc. buildings is devoted to the genius of man and his development in the fields of art, science, and industry. The plaza surrounded by the stadium and the midway is devoted to sculpture showing the temperament of the people in their games, sports, and amusements. The display of water in cascades and fountains about the electric tower suggested the allegorization in sculpture of the great waters to which Buffalo's commerce and wealth are largely due. The general style of architecture of the exposition is a free treatment of the Spanish Renaissance. This was chosen by way of compliment to the many Latin American countries represented in the exposition. Colonnades, arcades, suggesting coolness and comfort, elevated pavilions, loggias, domes, lanterns, towers, and minarets, commanding broad views of the grounds. All of these are extensively used in the ornamentation of the main structures. The color scheme follows the plan of this sculptural embellishment. As the sculpture symbolizes the progress of the race, the coloring represents in epitome the growth of the color sense. Thus, the strongest, crudest colors are nearest the entrances. In the coloring of the buildings, there is a progression from warm buff and ochre walls with terracotta roofs through more refined and brilliant hues to the electric tower, striking the highest and finest note of all in ivory white, delicate blues, greens, and gold. The roofs are generally of red tile. All the buildings have a play of color about their entrances, balconies, pinnacles, and towers. The whole group of buildings was treated as one picture and the colors made to harmonize, not only with one another, but with the foreground of green grass and water and the background blue of the sky. We tried to go into the service building and the hospital as they were complete, but we found no admittance there also. The service building was the first of the exposition buildings to be built. It is used as an office and administration headquarters for the officers whose presence is required on the grounds. It is a 2-story building with light yellow coloring. The hospital is provided with well-equipped operating rooms, sleeping rooms, etc., such as are in any up-to-date hospital. Just before coming home, we picked our way over the broken stone of the Midway to Paths restaurant where we had ginger ale. We left the grounds around 6 o'clock. Thus concludes Mabel Barnes' first visit to the Pan-American Exposition. The illustrations she pasted in include a view of the North Midway looking toward the streets of Cairo, the service building, the hospital, an example of the Pan-American Diploma of Award, the Pan-American medals. I mentioned the electric tower, also the poster with the famous Spirit of Niagara figure made of the mist. This is what she typically did in her scrapbook, where she collected illustrations and pasted them in.